Warning: the following video contains explicit language which may be offensive to some viewers or inappropriate for children. The content within this video is intended for mature audiences only.
Hey everybody, it's Jeff. Glad everybody is here and watching, and I hope that wherever you are, the weather is more agreeable. I know there was been a lot of snow dumped further south of us here. We got mostly winds and a little bit of snow, but right today it was really nice out today. It was really warm and a lot of melting going on. So it's like partly cloudy, but the sun keeps peeking out. So beautiful day here, nonetheless. So who didn't watch the State of the Union address? No, I didn't. I didn't want to subject myself to boring half-truths. Why waste the time? The guy's never told the truth once in his fucking life, and he's not about to start. A lot of people were kind of confused because, he rambled on for a lot of different things. It didn't really have much to do about the State of the Union. Okay. And he spent very little time talking about the things that really matter to people right now. But I don't know, some people walked away thinking it was a great speech. Well, he may be good at delivering speeches, okay? But it's the substance of what he tells you is what's always in question, all right? A liar is always going to tell you a good lie instead of telling the truth. So anyway, this article here that I found from Jack Cucciarella says it was the most boring 2 hours of his life. So let me get my glasses here so you can see this. He said Donald Trump gave the State of the Union address, but it felt more like a Hail Mary to avoid having to talk about the actual State of the Union: higher prices, lower approval ratings, and general dislike of Trump and his administration. And on top of it all, he did it while showing off his discolored, makeup-covered hand. And of course, there's a picture of his hand there. You always wonder, how do they get somebody with a camera to take a picture, and he's not knowing that someone's taking pictures of your hand? Trump managed to make it the longest speech in history while barely saying anything of any substance. He only spent around 2 minutes talking about affordability, but he did manage to find time to give the U.S. men's hockey goalie the Presidential Medal of Freedom. The majority of Trump's speech focused on crime, immigration, and national security. Approval ratings on Trump's immigration policy reached new lows recently. Instead of trying to rehabilitate his image or bring the country together, he spent time trotting out people and sharing their human interest stories on how they benefited with Trump RX and other Trump-themed brands, making himself more money through the seat of the presidency. Like Abigail Spanberger said, he's not working for anyone but himself, and he's enriching himself in the meantime. Trump also rambled about how Democrats are ruining the country, and he caught them in the nick of time. But his approval ratings with that and amongst independents have never been lower, and the majority of Americans don't think he has the right priorities. So not only was his speech a failure, but he failed while trying to cover up his ongoing health issues and what I can only assume is more bruising on his hand. The American people deserve answers on the president's health and maybe a different president entirely. Yeah, well, I figured that would be pretty much what the State of the Union would be. And I don't know why people were really that interested in what he had to say. I mean, I guess it's historic, I suppose, but it would only matter if the message he was delivering was on actual successes, to say, I promised you this and I delivered. I promised you that and I delivered. Everything he promised he was going to do, aside from the immigration shit, which he totally dropped the ball on, okay, he hasn't done. None of it. Lower cost of groceries? Nope. Okay, health care for everybody? No. Okay, he cut all that. And tariffs, he said he'd give you tariffs. Well, he did that, but he made you think that the tariffs would affect the countries he put the tariffs on, not us, but he left that part out. Okay, I hear that FedEx is trying to sue the Trump administration for the tariff costs as they had to pay, which kind of makes me wonder. You know, I recently bought something from China online on eBay, and there is a tariff fee that I have to pay. Me. Post office ain't paying that. I got to pay that. Okay? So I don't see how FedEx is saying that they had to pay tariffs. I don't know. Anyone buy anything from FedEx that came from China? Did you have to pay the tariff on that? If you did, what the hell is FedEx bitching about? Okay? Because they passed that buck on to you. So anyway, I'm just saying, that's what FedEx is trying to do right now. They're trying to sue Trump for that. I'm not sure if they're going to win that or not. It all depends on what they're complaining about specifically. But all I know was that you, me, the average citizen, we're the ones actually forking over the money for tariffs, not the companies. And I don't think the post office, FedEx, UPS, I don't think they're doing it either. Okay? So... yeah, so what the hell did he really have to talk about? Well, he did bring up Iran and the fact that, by the way, I know I told you that we destroyed Iran's ability to make nukes, but guess what? They're making nukes. It's like, less than a year ago, he bombed the hell out of this fucking mountainside, and then he comes out on TV and says, okay, Iran, you can't make any more nukes. And then here we are, February, and now he's got 2 aircraft carriers sitting out there near Iran. Okay, and he's saying there's a chance. They got nukes, and we need to stop them. And he's out there trying to make the case to start. It's like the WMD shit all over again. Okay, he figured that he could sell that and that same thing. The problem with the WMD thing was we were bouncing off of 9/11 when that shit started. When the country was still enraged about having been hit by Al Qaeda. Okay, had nothing to do with Iraq. Had nothing to do with Iraq and WMDs. Everybody in the UN, the inspectors, people were all saying they don't have WMDs. We checked, they are clean. But Bush didn't want to hear that. Cheney didn't want to hear that. Rumsfeld didn't want to hear that. Okay? They wanted to go to Iraq for other reasons. Had nothing to do with 9/11. But they were using 9/11 as the inspiration to get what they wanted, because they knew the American public was still pissed off and angry. They wanted someone to answer with that, okay, for that. So, but we didn't have any attack here at home for this incident with Iran. We haven't had any attack here. So Trump is trying to generate support with the public to go to war with Iran, and it's not as easy as it was when we were talking WMDs, okay? It's different now. Plus, he's actually contradicted himself by saying Iran couldn't make any, and now all of a sudden he's got ships out there ready to strike because he thinks they still have. So which is it? Did we cripple them or not? So, everybody that was saying that we didn't hit anything over there last year, the Democrats are saying the places that he bombed had nothing to do with anything. There's nothing there. And Trump was saying, no, there was something there. Well, now all of a sudden, the Democrats are proven right. Yeah, he didn't hit shit. because now he's coming out saying they still have a capability to build nukes, all right? But it doesn't really matter. Like I told you months ago, it doesn't matter if they have the capability or not to build the nukes. What matters is Russia, because they are allied with Iran. Russia's got nukes, we know that. And if Iran wants, maybe they could get Russia to lodge some over here if an attack happens. You don't know. But everybody's, you know, thinking that it's just Iran, Iran, Iran. But Iran is not alone like Iraq was. Iran, okay, they have allies. So we have to take that into consideration, that even if you understand that Iran doesn't have nukes, okay, the fact is they have friends that do, okay? Just like I know Israel has nukes, even though they'll deny up and down that they do. I know they got nukes. And if they didn't, it wouldn't matter, because the United States backs them. So if they wanted the United States to launch a nuke for them, they would do it. So, like I said, it's one of those situations where you're debating in a vacuum here, because it doesn't matter, you know, whether Iran has nukes or not, or the ability to build them or not. They can have friends that have all those things that they want, okay? And that really is what troubles me about trying to start anything with Iran, is you could be dragging in other nations that we don't want to get tangled with to help out Iran if we decide to invade. I mean, it could blow up into a big fucking war since World War II, you know? I mean, that's kind of how World War I started, you know, one nation coming after another, then the other nation jumping in, and another nation, before you know it, you got an entire air region of the world at war with one another. I mean, that would be the very definition of a world war, because even if nobody's using nukes, you got every country on one side of the planet there engaged in it. Okay? So, yeah. So anyway, like I said, the State of the Union speech was... I know the Republicans will say, oh, it was aggressive bait. Of course they're going to say that. They're going to kiss his ass to their dying breath, okay? MAGA's going to kiss his ass to their dying breath. We expected them to say that. However, the rest of us who don't believe in that cultish way of thinking saw nothing there, okay? There was no there in the speech. He just rambled and rambled and rambled. Probably thought he was doing a stump speech or something, you know, for a campaign already long gone. No, he just was up there talking, and people were expected to applaud when they had to applaud. Okay, there was no no real approval of anything he was saying. It was all, you better applaud, or, you know, that's it. Okay, it's like, you know, it's like what was this comedy I saw where somebody holds up a sign, applause, you know, and there's people next to them with guns, and you know, it's kind of like that. These people are all kissing Trump's ass, and they want to be seen as supportive of him. You know, I was laughing because there's a lot of campaign commercials running over here right now. It's for Susan Collins, and some of the things that they're trying to brag that Collins helped to create, like giving firemen in this state the proper equipment they need to fight fire. And at the end, they said, call Susan Collins and thank her. And then there was another commercial, Susan Collins, where, let me see if I get it, what it was exactly. Oh, yeah, health care or something like that in the state, that she improved it. And they say, call Susan Collins and thank her. And I'm thinking, is that really what she's going to run on? Is, you should thank me. Really? What about all the other things that haven't been fixed in the state? You want us to thank you for that too? Because you haven't been there for Maine for quite a while. You've been playing footsie in Washington, D.C. all this time, and you've left this state hanging. There's a lot of people in Maine that ain't too happy with her right now, and I know she's worried about that. Because a lot of these campaign commercials here, they're, you know, being funded, you know, by some big money donors and stuff like that. So they want her to, you know, the Republicans want her to stay in the Senate because, you know, she's an asset to them. She can get money. She can get big dollars for people that run for their seats. So they want her to stay. And so these campaign commercials seem so artificial and so, you know, dishonest, because they're talking about, oh, you know, there was another one they had where she kept the waters clean in this state. You're talking about something she did like over a decade and a half ago. Okay, what the hell does that got to do with now? The issues that people in Maine are looking at now have nothing to do about the water or about firemen in their uniforms. You know, it's about you know, the cost of living in this state is through the roof, and the taxes are through the roof. What has she done about that? Okay, how has she helped us out there? She hasn't. And, you know, she doesn't work hand in hand with the governor, Governor Mills, because Governor Mills is Democrat. So you have this wall that separates the two, where the boats are not lined up here. She's doing her own thing, and Mills is trying to do things for the state, but she can't expect any help from Collins. That's what's frustrating a lot of people in this state, is that we don't see the two of these people working together for the state. They can't, because they're separated by ideology, by party. Okay, so all these things that the commercials are trying to instill in the Maine voters isn't totally factual, and it's not hitting the points of interest that people in the state are thinking about before they go to the ballots. Okay, for the midterms, they're not thinking about what she's campaigning on, trying to say, thank me for this, thank me for that. You've already been thanked for those things, and, you know, that's not what we're talking about. That's not what our complaints are about, Susan Collins. You know, that goes to show she's not in touch with the people in the state, especially those up north, the farmers, you know, in Maine. You know, they've been struggling, okay? And they're the ones that really put her in the seat of the Senate for all this time. For 20-something years, she's been senator. It's always been northern Maine that kept her going back. Well, now her base up there is getting pissed because they're suffering up there, and she's not doing much about it. So, like I said, it's very. I thought it was kind of crazy, you know, seeing these commercials now that they're going to be running till November, no doubt. But you know, the Democrats are also running commercials too, reminding Susan Collins to say, call her to let her know this needs to be fixed. Okay, we're not calling you to thank you. We're calling you to remind you where your loyalties lie. Okay, just because you're the senator doesn't mean your job in the state of Maine is over. It means your job in the state is more important now because you speak for the population here. And if you're not speaking for us and only for people that can pay you some money, then you're not doing your fucking job, and you need to be out. It's like I said, once a diaper gets old, it's time to change it. She's an old diaper, people. Okay, we needed to change that diaper a long time ago. So it's time for a new face for representing Maine in the Senate. Okay, she's done her bit. She's what, 70-something years old. It's time for her to retire, for Christ's sake. Anyway, she's got, you know, more money than she really deserves, and she's set for life. You know, health-wise, you know, because she gets health coverage and stuff from the government. She's set. She don't need to be in there anymore. Okay? Why don't she just enjoy her retirement while she can still walk around amicably? You know, I just feel like, you know, it's time to change the fucking diaper, really. There's a lot of senators, a lot of congressmen who ought to be out, really. I mean, if we as a voters really want to take this thing, the midterm, seriously, we need to start thinking about a genuine house cleaning. We need to start getting out what's been there for more than 10 years and put in new people, okay, to replace them. We need to have some new blood in there, because that would put the donors on, you know, like a very precarious situation where, oh, geez, now we got to start from scratch with these new people, you know, and it's not going to be the same old for the people going to Washington to give them money for this and that. Okay, now you're dealing with some different people, so it might not be as easy for them. So you want that. You want to catch them off balance. Okay, and that's what new faces will do. Is now you're dealing with somebody they don't really know. Okay, they can't really trust yet because these people are brand new and they don't know how to handle them yet. So you would put them in a bind, and that's what we have to think as voters is, how long has this person been doing this job, and what have they really done? Let's take a list of all the things they accomplished or all the things they didn't accomplish, okay, and find out from that whether or not that person really should stay. Because look, even if you vote them out, these people aren't going to be crying about lost money or wages. They're already set. Like I told you, they always will collect money from the government, having been a senator, for whatever. So it's really, really smart on the American people to just think of it that way. And I'm saying this for both parties. Both parties, you need to clean your houses. Okay, get rid of those people that are not doing their fucking job, or have been there since the Stone Age. Get rid of these fuckers. Okay, put some new people in there, because we need to start fresh. If we're going to change anything, it's better to do that with new faces in there who are going to, at first, are going to have to listen to you if they want to stay there. Okay, because they won't be getting big money for a future campaign. We have to get rid of the fucking old horses that are in there, because they see what happens is people that are new get in there, and the old horses say, you got to play by my rules. Okay, you can't do nothing without my say-so. That's got to stop. That has got to stop. These people that have been there since the beginning of time, they shouldn't lord over that fact to newcomers and intimidate them so they can't do anything but follow the leader, as it were. That kind of shit has to go. So you do that by getting rid of the leaders, the old guard, and putting in new faces. That way nobody is the boss and everybody does what they feel like they should do. That's what you want. You'd have a much better kind of a democracy that way. But anyway, let's go to a commercial break. We'll be right back.
I'm Alex Curtis. I'm a lobsterman in Maine, and this is me.
I'm Roxy Sugar, and this is me.
I'm Eric Hopkins. I'm an artist, and this is me.
This
is me.
me.
This is me.
This is me.
At the end of the journey, the main thing is you, original.
Asking me, please, Mr. President, we're winning too much. We can't take it anymore. And I say, no. You're going to win again. You're going to win big. You're going to win bigger than ever.
Anyone else remember that coked out interview Charlie Sheen did a while back talking about all that winning? Same energy. Donnie, I am 99.9% certain if the American people are approaching you saying they can't take it anymore, they're not talking about winning. Because you quite literally have the lowest approval rating in modern day history. If you consider that winning, I guess technically you are in first place. As if the American people aren't already suffering, we had to sit through the longest State of the Union speech in history. One that quite literally could have used an intermission. So it's a good thing Erica Kirk was there to provide us with yet another alt-right, all-American, unbelievably lackluster halftime show performance. If what Kid Rock did was called lip syncing, where you pretend to sing, what is it called that you were doing? I guess we'll find out tonight on Candace Owens' show. But enough about the theatrics. Let's talk about the facts of last night, or the lack thereof. At one point, he had me believing that the gas prices must be low, because how could one afford to gaslight us as much as he did in this economy? At one point, trying to actually convince us that the concept of affordability is just something we made up in our heads. Not everybody in this country, Donald, is making billions off a cryptocurrency scam. Some of us are suffering through rising healthcare costs and energy costs and grocery costs. At one point, he said prescription medications are down 600%. And as someone who takes prescription medication for a heart condition, I was shocked. Because mine have actually gone up. And if they were down 600%, that would mean the pharmacy owes me money. And that has yet to happen. And don't get me started on how the GOP managed to turn brown nosing into an Olympic event, where it seemed that every time Donald Trump took a breath, they gave him a standing ovation. At one point, it looked like Mike Johnson was wearing vibrating panties, and Lindsey Graham had control over the remote. Flap your wings, little ladybug. But despite all the bullshit and lies, Donald Trump managed to use the one surefire way to distract MAGA from reality, with a USA chant. Let's ignore the wealth gap or the fact that no one can afford a home. Let's ignore that tariffs have cost the American people over $275 billion. Let's ignore that while Donald Trump bragged about creating 200,000 jobs, Joe Biden created 2 million. Ignore it all, because USA, USA, USA. Anyways, bye.
Rachel Reyes voted for Donald Trump. According to the family lawyer speaking to Newsweek, she cast her ballot for the man who promised law and order. She'd likely believe what millions of Trump voters believe, that if you support the police, if you support the agents, if you support the crackdown, you're going to be safe. She actually thought that the deportation force and the unshackled police were only coming for the criminals and the illegals. She thought that she was on the right team. Her son, Ruben Ray Martinez, a 23-year-old American citizen, was shot and killed by a Homeland Security investigations agent on South Padre Island. And this week, the state of Texas told her that this killing was perfectly legal. A grand jury returned a no bill, no indictment, no trial, no justice. This is the ultimate tragedy of the MAGA movement. You vote for a monster because you think it will only hurt the people you dislike, and then you're shocked, Pikachu-faced, when it shows up at your own front door. On March 15th, 2025, the machinery that she voted for turned on her family. So let's look at the reality of the law and order that Rachel Reyes had voted for. You see, Ruben was unarmed. He was in his car. The official narrative from law enforcement is the standard line, "The vehicle was used as a weapon." They claimed he struck an agent. But of course, we have a conflicting account from Joshua Orta, a passenger in that car. Now, before he tragically passed away, Joshua gave a sworn affidavit. He said the car was barely moving. He said that Ruben had looked at the agent and said, "I'm sorry." Kind of makes me think of Renee Good. You know, I'm not mad at you. And then, of course, what happened? She was shot. And so was Reyes. The agent had fired, shot him through the window, dragged him out, handcuffed a dying man while he bled out on the pavement. Now, Rachel Reyes had likely cheered for the rhetoric about taking the gloves off police, right, and immigration agents. But now, she sees what that actually looks like. It looks like her son bleeding out on the pavement over a traffic stop. Now let's talk about the justice system that she put her faith in. District Attorney Louis Sands announced yesterday that the grand jury had found insufficient probable cause to charge the agent. This is what we like to refer to as the blue wall in action. We have to ask, did the grand jury see the full picture, or did they see a badge and decide that that was enough? I mean, it is Texas after all, though. Rachel Reyes is currently learning a brutal lesson. See, the deep state isn't some conspiracy theory about lizard people. No, the real deep state is actually a system where armed agents can kill a citizen on video, and the local prosecutor washes his hands of it. Doesn't matter that she voted for Trump. Doesn't matter that she supported blue lives. To the system that she voted for, her son was nothing more than collateral damage. And this is a pattern that we're seeing everywhere. Farmers who voted for tariffs are now going bankrupt. Seniors who voted for budget cuts are losing their Meals on Wheels. And now a mother who voted for a police state is burying her son because of it. Newsweek reported that the family is devastated, not just by the loss, of course, but by the lack of accountability. But here's a hard truth that I'm forced to discuss on this channel whenever there's a story like this. You see, accountability is exactly what the Trump movement campaigned against. They campaigned on more immunity for police. They campaigned on roughing them up. They campaigned on the idea that state violence is good as long as it targets the bad guys. Problem is that once you give the state the power to kill people with impunity, eventually everyone becomes a bad guy in the eyes of an agent with a gun. Now, if you know someone who still thinks that voting for authoritarianism will keep them safe, send them the story. Send them the link about Rachel Reyes. Ask them, do you think the agent checks your voting record before he pulls the trigger? Like, this is the find out phase, and it's absolutely tragic, but we can't look away from this. We've got to document every single time this movement ends up betraying its own supporters. So make sure you're subscribed. I'm tracking these stories all the time. And so, and I'm going to keep doing these, keep reporting what's actually happening. I'm Jeff. This is The Logical Leftist, and I'll see you in the next one.
DoorDash Girl, the sneaky spy who brings the fries.
She delivers, she discovers, snap and share it all.
Press the crash out button and... I'm the victim! DoorDash Girl, the villain next door.
Be a part of the entertainment value of a lifetime.
I loved it.
It was the best performance I've seen in a lifetime.
I loved the show. I liked it very much. He's a very entertaining man. It's well worth the money.
Now appearing in Charlottetown, coming to Halifax November 6th to the 18th, and St. John November 20th through the 26th.
Welcome back, people. Welcome back. I got another perspective here from a different person on that State of the Union speech. From Randy Rhodes, the State of the Union. She described it as Olympic-style lying, which I'm sure it was. The State of the Union is a mess. The president will lie. A lot. He has to. The president's approval rating stands at 39% positive and 60% negative, including 47% who say they strongly disapprove. Here's just some of the reasons for those numbers. Remember Doge? Trump's first year back in the White House began with an obscene amount of lying and a massive invasion of our privacy. Trump and Elon Musk created Doge, Department of Government Efficiency. pledging to cut $2 trillion out of the $6.5 trillion Harris-Biden budget by targeting waste, fraud, and abuse. Elon's hand-picked tech bros without the usual security clearances or oversight embedded themselves across agencies like the Treasury, Social Security, General Services Administration, Department of Homeland Security, U.S. Agency for International Development, and others. They were given wide access to internal systems, private data, and decision-making power. Doge began reporting the savings on their website's, quote, wall of receipts, unquote. Independent reporting found that many entries on Doge's, quote, wall of receipts, unquote, ghostly overstated and incorrectly reported savings. For example, one item listed as an $8 billion DHS-related contract was actually worth about $8 million. He took the B out, but investigations by journalists and federal auditors found that this pattern recurred across dozens of entries, including contracts at GSA, HHS, and ICE, making the Doge savings figures pure bullshit. Slowly, $2 trillion in savings became $1 trillion in savings, and then $150 billion in savings before anyone stopped listening. Or before everyone stopped listening, I'm sorry. Doge was intended to run through mid-2026, but ended in late 2025, 8 months ahead of the termination date of July 4th of this year. The other reason for the approval and disapproval numbers is the One Big Beautiful Bill Act. On July 4th, Trump signed his massive tax bill. The One Big Beautiful Bill Act. The bill includes sweeping tax cuts, extensions, and expansions of tax provisions from the 2017 Tax Cuts and Jobs Act, plus massive increases in the Department of Homeland Security, ICE, and the Department of Defense. Huge cuts and changes to federal programs such as Medicaid and SNAP are about to roll out. Many of the cuts don't hit until late 2026 this year and 2027. So they don't affect midterm voters until after the election. But more than $1 trillion over a decade has been cut from federal health care and food assistance, largely by imposing work requirements on those receiving aid and by shifting certain federal costs onto the states. About 71 million adults are enrolled in Medicaid now, and most of them, around 92%, are working, caregiving, attending school, or disabled. Earlier estimates of the budget bill from the Congressional Budget Office found that about 5 million people stand to lose coverage. Quote, the cuts are really big, they are really broad, and they are deeply damaging, unquote, said Sharon Parrott, president of the Center for Budget and Policy Priorities, which is a research institute in Washington. Quote, the consequences are millions of people losing health care coverage, unquote, she said. Quote, millions of people losing food assistance, and the net result of that is higher poverty, more hardship, unquote. Does the One Big Beautiful Bill Act save us money? No. The cost of OBBA, which is the for that, increases the federal budget deficit and national debt by roughly $3.4 trillion over the next 10 years. Okay, the other reason for Trump's dismal numbers is tariffs. On again, off again, aggressive retaliatory tariff initiatives were found to be illegal by the Supreme Court just a few days ago. As we all know, only Congress has the power to tax. Now, $133 billion will have to be returned to American importers who paid the tariffs, many passing costs on to consumers. Trump still says tariffed countries paid the tariff, but that's a lie. Americans, importers, and consumers paid the tariffs, which was what we've been saying all along while Trump's been lying. Okay, and the other reason here, another reason why the low approval numbers, Fast boats in the Caribbean, Venezuela and Trump side gig. Trump has used deadly force against fast boat crews in the Caribbean extrajudicially, killing 150 to 160 people, then kidnapped Nicolas Maduro, the dictator of Venezuela. Trump has since declared himself the Venezuelan president and, quote, took their oil, unquote. Doesn't make us look good. I think that affected us globally than it did really nationally. I think people around the world were really upset with Trump doing what he did there, okay? I'm not so sure that it really mattered much to MAGA. You know, it might have mattered a little bit more with everybody else, but I think it mattered more to the rest of the world where they saw what Trump did. Okay, then there's the Epstein files. A major legislative and public effort to make Epstein-related files public succeeded in the House and unanimously in the Senate. The legislation requires releasing all the documents the government has regarding Epstein. It requires redacting the names of victims, but not the names of powerful individuals. The DOJ is violating this law. Some redactions expose victims but cover the names of the perpetrators and enablers. DOJ continues to misrepresent what has been released. Everyone knows this. Then there's the crypto grift. At least on paper, Trump's meme coins, tokens, NFTs, stablecoin, Bitcoin, and the trading fees he collects on these things has produced $1 to $2 billion for Trump during his presidency. This is the most conflicted president we've ever had. The economy that we live in, and the other reason, most Americans feel pessimistic or uneasy about the economy. A majority of people believe the economy is going in the wrong direction and say it's not working well for them personally. With many expressing concern about the cost of living, housing affordability, healthcare, and prices overall. Consumer sentiment measures reflect how people feel about their own financial situations and the broader economy. Too many are worried about inflation, job prospects, and economic stability. Polling data indicates that around 40% of U.S. adults approve of his economic stewardship, while about 56 to 61% disapprove, yielding a negative net approval on the economy of roughly 14 to 20 points. On related issues like inflation, approval is even lower, in the low to mid 30% range. Recent measures show inflation near 2.8 to 2.9%, remaining above the Federal Reserve's 2% target. This is just a partial list of reasons why Trump must lie tomorrow night, or as this was written before the State of the Union address. This is part of the reason why he has to lie. Can you imagine him talking about any of these policies? We didn't even get to the 747 gifted by Qatar for his bogus, quote, board of peace, unquote, or the $2 billion a member of the ruling family of the United Arab Emirates invested in the Trump family cryptocurrency company called World Liberty Financial. I haven't mentioned Minneapolis, the building of detention camps, 6 American citizens killed by their own government for using their First Amendment rights, or the fact that he is decomposing live on the TV and is obviously mentally unfit to serve another minute. The State of the Union is a mess. It's yeah, so yeah, all those things play into the fact that even though Trump is out there giving a speech to the country and everyone's clapping and applauding, the reality of the situation is that he's probably the most hated president we've ever had in this country right now. And I use the word president here only because, you know, I'm trying to, you know, people are calling him that, but he's really not a president. And I'll say it again. He's the first dictator this country ever had because he runs it like that. He wants it to be like that because he doesn't want to actually work to get anything achieved. He doesn't want to do the debate, the negotiation. He can't do those things. To him, he just deems it, okay? You got to do it, and that's it. But he's not a negotiator. He has no art to it. You know, I was talking to somebody the other day about, you know, how to be a leader of a country, you really can't take political sides. Even if you're running as a Democrat, if you become president, you have to put that party loyalty aside and stand in the middle, because you're the person that they're going to come to negotiate. And if you lean one way or the other, who's going to trust, that you're not being influenced? So as a president, you've got to stand in the middle. And that means you have to have the ability to bring everybody to the table and hammer out deals, which means each side's got 100 things. Let's just say here mathematically, okay? The Democrats have 100 things on a list they want. The Republicans have 100 things on a list that they want. Everybody comes to the table. President's in the middle. They all start to debate and argue and fight, okay? As it always happens. At the end of the day, what should happen is that neither side gets everything they want, but maybe both sides get half of what they want, and they settle for that. The other 50% that they didn't get will come up later in another negotiation. And maybe out of that 50%, they'll get 15% of this on one side and 15% on the other side. You see what I'm saying? That's why a democracy is slow, because it's about chipping away till you get to everything. It's about that. People have to learn that you can't get everything in one big step. You've got to take little steps at a time, and the person in the middle has to be able to keep it civil, to make these people understand that, look, you can't have everything your way, you can't have everything your way, but we can agree on certain things that you each have. We can do that. And if they can't settle, if one side says, no, it's got to be 100% and no way, then the government stops. When you got one side that won't, take half and walk away happy, and they want it all, then the government stops. It cannot go forward. Forget the baby steps. The steps would stop right then and there, because you got one side that wants everything their way. They're not gonna go unless they get it all. So how can the government move forward? That's where we are right now. You understand what I'm saying? I mean, that's why our country right now is in where it is. It cannot go forward because we have one group of people who want everything their way. They want the whole kabang. And that's not realistic. And that's why they had to put a dictator wannabe in power, because he guaranteed they would get everything they want. Come hell or high water, he would give them what they wanted. They weren't going to try and work for it the right way, the democratic way. They were going to do it by bulldozing the opposition. So the government stops, but now it goes off into this tangent that nobody wants to go down, okay? That's why we're having all this bad approval numbers. There's all this shit that Trump's doing. People don't like it. And that's the reason why you have to have someone who can bring people together to debate, negotiate, and work. It's a tough job, okay? It's a tough job, which requires people to have skill. You can't just elect Bozo the Clown because he makes you laugh and he sounds funny when he talks, and expect this guy to come to the fucking table and able to work out deals. Okay? I'm sorry. But it takes people that are boring, okay? And they look like Einstein with their hair all. Sometimes that's what you need, okay? The people that you wouldn't even look twice at, their brains, those are the ones you want. Like Bernie Sanders, okay? Somebody like that, okay? They don't look too appealing, but they got it where it counts. Okay? Donald Trump, he's Bozo the Clown. He can't deliver on anything, so he has to railroad everything that he wants through, which every time he does that, it makes people hate him more. Because that's not what our country's supposed to work like. It's a democracy. It's not a dictatorship or, kings leading whatever, okay? That's not the way it's supposed to work. But that's what he's been doing. And that's why his numbers continue to sink, why he's considered the most hated president we've ever had, okay? President, loosely saying, okay? That's the reason being, because we don't feel like he gives a shit about what this country, how it was founded, how it was created. We don't think he gives a shit about that. So how can this guy represent America when he don't even believe in it? Okay? This is the wrong guy to be sitting in the White House in this nation's 250th birthday that's coming up. Okay? He's the wrong fucking guy. It couldn't happen at a worse time, especially with the birthday. But like I said, it's just, it really shows how far we've fallen off the fucking track here. We've really gone off the rails because the country we're going to celebrate the birthday doesn't exist. Not as it does now. Okay, it's just, it's not there. The flag is a symbol of a bygone era, because now the Trump flag that the MAGA people have been flying around on the back of their pickups, really that's the flag. Okay, I know that sounds harsh, but the American flag, I mean, it doesn't mean anything to people anymore, clearly, because they you know, we got people in government now that don't even want to acknowledge that that even symbolizes this country anymore. They don't even want that. You got a lot of people in the South want to walk around with that rebel flag. Okay, they don't even want to. They don't even want to look at that anymore. So, what is America now? Is it even? Can we even call it a United States now? I mean, because you got states fighting states now. I mean, you're gonna, you know, and I surely expect at some point that a state like, we'll just take Texas because they're, you know, they're kind of weird, but I would expect Texas to say we're leaving the union. Okay, we're going to be our own little country here, and that's it. And when one state starts it, another will do it. California would be next. Okay, you're going to have all these states one by one separating themselves from a government they don't believe in anymore, because the people that are in there are fucking it all up or not doing anything to protect it. So that's why I say, you know, I see that happening, you know, in the days to come. I might even live to see it, you know, happening, you know. But that would be the sign that, you know, America, the American dream, such as it was, is gone for good. Okay. You know, and I was, you know, talking with a relative about the American dream and saying, you know, the American dream changes with every generation, because things don't remain the same in this country for long. They always, depending on the economy, the dream changes to fit the economy. And right now, the economy being in the toilet like it is, the American dream is a very small dream that a lot of people, you know, like buying a house, or, you know, even just getting a small house, you know, or a used car, you know, having a job that pays more than minimum wage. I mean, that's, you know, really for a lot of young people in their 20s, that's their American dream. And when you talk to these people today, they feel like they've been, you know, slighted. They've been cheated, you know, and I can't say I disagree with them feeling that way, because previous generations have done a big disservice with our economy. We've played with it, we've fucked with it, we've bankrupted ourselves with it to the point where our dollar don't mean fucking shit anymore. That's why everyone's looking at crypto coins and shit like that, like that's going to be the savior. Okay, that's just a pipe dream. That's nothing to depend on. And certainly having a president that's trying to shit on other countries through tariffs, okay, certainly that's making it worse, because now people can't really, you know, buy things they would like that aren't that expensive, you know, because, hey, they got to take, well, that $50, could we use that for food instead? People can't really vacation much, you know, and you got to be careful where you go, because a lot of countries don't want Americans there anymore now. Okay, they're putting what do they call that? Restrictions on us in retaliation for what Trump's doing to them. So a lot of Americans won't be welcome in certain countries, and so, you know, the American dream just continually shrinks in every fucking generation. And we need to look at that and say, we're not doing our job to keep it alive. That's how you can tell if a country is actually living right or doing things right. When people are constantly, it's like a frog being boiled to death without, you know, slowly. That's what we're doing. We're constantly cutting our nose to spite our face to the point where we got nothing in the end, and it's going to happen, and people go, well, how come we can't do this anymore? You see? So we have to remember that we're not just living for ourselves. We're living also to protect our future generations so they have something to build on. And if they don't, what do they got? A dream is all they got. The one you can only live when you're asleep. Everything else, I mean, why even be born into this country if that's the way it's going to be? Honestly. I mean, if there was another land out there on Earth that hasn't been colonized or anything like that, people would be going there right now to start a brand new government. I can guarantee you this. But because we've colonized everywhere, we've got no more lands to go and take. Okay? We're stuck with the fucking mess, and we have to fix it. We should have done this before we left England, to be truthful about it. This was something that we had to do before we left England. We needed to stay in that country and fix it before people started coming over here. So here we're being confronted with the same fucking issue here we had then. We don't like our government anymore. We want something better. Well, you can't just snap your finger, create a new piece of land, and there you go. No, you got to take the existing government, fix it, all right, and then continue. And there's there's nothing that says you can't fix the government you have. The people that wrote the Constitution, all that, understood that changes would have to go as the generations move forward. Things will change. People's needs will change. The government will get bigger. Responsibilities will get bigger. Okay? They understood that, but we gave up doing that as we went. We focused on ourselves, being selfish, being greedy. We tried to use that government to enrich ourselves in ways that we didn't deserve. Okay? So now, here we are with our economy pretty much, turning to dust. And now people are, looking at the government as, the reason, finally, of why we can't get ahead in this world anymore. Why everybody else around us is making strides and leaps forward while we're still sitting here debating, while we're still sitting here arguing. We're still sitting here trying to find people to lead us. Okay? We've stopped as a government. We came to a screeching halt because people just became, unbendable. They won't fucking do their job as politicians and stuff like that, or negotiators, to do the job. Nobody wants to do that anymore. They just want everything their way because, maybe they grew up thinking that I get everything I want. Why can't I do that in life? So, anyway, that's it for today. So I hope everybody has a great rest of the week and upcoming weekend. So subscribe, comment, and share. And keep your ears open for health issues out there. And help each other out. You got neighbors, you got friends, you got family. Help each other out, for God's sake. You can't just expect everybody to always have everything. Help, okay? Some people are too proud to ask for it. But, you got to put pride aside at some point in your life. Otherwise, you're doing yourself a disservice. Okay? There's no shame in admitting you need help. So do that. I'll talk to you guys later. Take care.